Grace Meets Us Where We Are by Gretchen Haley. There is nothing we need to bring with us to be welcome here. No right beliefs or proof of citizenship, no eternal optimism or clarity of conviction, no boundless courage or endless expertise.
You do not need to know what brought you here or how you will solve that problem you are turning over and over and over in your mind. Your bills do not need to be paid, and your checkbook can be a mess. Your children may have been up half the night. Your hearing aids may not be working, and your knees may be creaking.
We do not need to be already perfect or even halfway to belong in this circle where grace meets us where we are, but does not leave us as it found us.
Where love resides in each of us, yet is somehow more than all. Where life still pulses and rages and heals and transforms, creating us and this day anew once again.
Come, let us light our chalice and let us attend together to what matters. In other words, come, let us worship. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power. Spirit, draw near. Spirit, Spirit, draw near. Spirit, Spirit, draw near. Spirit, Spirit, draw near.
Well, good morning. My name is Beth Karow, and I am serving as worship associate for this morning's service. Yay. I'm joined by the Reverend Kevin Tarsa with familiar guest musician Gabrielle Lawson and Eileen Hale as our Zoom host. Oh, yeah, take a minute. Eileen Hale and on Zoom. Plus we have fantastic teams of AV engineers, greeters, refreshment hosts, kids connection, volunteers, etc. So whether gathered in our building in Grass Valley, California, or online, it is our hope that all feel welcomed by warm hearts, open minds, and the hands of fellowship of the Unitarian Universalist community of the mountains. Appropriately, as we begin our new theme for the month, the gift of transformation, the month of March has entered like a lion, although not as fierce as we were expecting, but that's fine. It remains to be seen whether it will become more lamb-like in the weeks ahead. In one of the recent brainstorming sessions held after church on the fourth Sundays, where folks are invited to help in the early planning stages of Sunday services by offering ideas, images, thoughts about the upcoming theme, this time transformation, the image of a butterfly was immediately offered up. Of course it was. In its short journey from tiny egg to beautiful winged creature, a butterfly is a powerful symbol of transformation. Before it gets its gorgeous wings and with them the freedom of flight, it must survive not only the caterpillar stage, but the time of pupation, where it literally turns to goo inside of its tight chrysalis. Now there are some rich images to draw upon, no? Okay, so here goes. Whether you inched your way here or fluttered in, whether you are feeling bright and beautiful and expansive and clear, or dark confused, constrained, and gooey. Now, you know what? I can't do this. I'm sorry, not this time. See, I have been trying to write this welcome for weeks. And for some reason, it's been just really challenging to find myself up to the task. So let me start over. The most famous caterpillar I know of is the one Alice found perched upon a mushroom and smoking a hookah when she found herself in Wonderland in the iconic book by Lewis Carroll. The caterpillar asked her repeatedly, "Who are you?" And Alice was hard pressed to give a satisfactory answer, replying at one point rather shyly, "I hardly know, sir, just at present. At least I know who I was when I got up this morning, but I think I must have been changed several times since then." Oh, Alice, I can relate. Maybe many of us can. Perfectionist, procrastinator, holding it all together, and barely holding on. In good physical and mental health, or maybe not doing so well currently. Joyful or full of sorrow. Hopeful and worried. Connected or lonely. Clear, murky, whole, broken, either or all of it. Like Alice, maybe we've changed many times since breakfast. All of this is to say, we are welcome here. Whoever we are, however we have come to be here, however we identify ourselves, and who and how we love. Wanderers, worshipers, lovers of leaving, returning, and leaving again, lovers of transformation. We are here together now, and we are invited to bring our whole selves, whoever we happen to be. We all matter, and we all are welcome.
He continued. So here's to explore yet another aspect of the way all of us learn to make our way through life and make our way through the world. This is the part of us, and some of us more than others, that most wants to feel significant, to feel that we matter. This is the part of us that is worried that we don't really matter, that we add no special value to the world, and that we have no real identity. And so this is the part of us that's driven to try to understand who we are, the part of us that tries to put together an identity made out of our feelings and the world inside of us. In Enneagram terms, this is point 4, the individualist, in some forms known as the artist, the romantic, the melancholic, the aesthete, the tragic victim, the special one, sensitive, withdrawn, expressive, dramatic, self-absorbed, and temperamental, deeply anchored in and identified with feelings. Know anyone? People in whom this aspect, this fourness is strong, see themselves as fundamentally different from everyone else. Feel that no one really understands them, and so no one can really love them completely or adequately. This is the part of ourselves that feels both uniquely talented and special and wants to be seen for that, but also uniquely flawed and deficient, missing something, which we don't want people to see, which they might see if we draw attention to that special part of us. And so there's this push-pull. Uniquely gifted and uniquely wounded. What's a person to do? More than any other type, people in whom this fourness is strongest are acutely aware of and they're focused on their deficiencies. And here's often how that takes place. Now, you may be familiar with the process of projection, where we take something from inside of us and misunderstand it as coming from outside of us. When there's something in us that we don't want to see or can't see, whether it's good or bad, right? Something in us we don't see or can't see that will project onto somebody else, and we'll see it in them and understand it as coming from them, not us, right? It's a way of sort of protecting ourselves. So if, for example, we can't see our own arrogance or our own envy or our desire for attention or our bossiness or our compassion or our talent, for that matter, then we'll see that arrogance, that envy, desire, that bossiness, that look for attention in someone else. We'll see the compassion and the talent in someone else, whether it's there or not, when really it was in us. We project it onto somebody else. In other words, we'll see the speck of sawdust in someone else's eye, but not the wooden plank in our own eye, to reference a biblical passage. Okay, with fours, this is not that. With fourness, it's actually the inverse of that. Not projection, but introjection, where we take something from outside of us and misunderstand it as coming from inside of us, as if it's part of our identity. In a very common four type example, this could be, for example, when someone criticizes us, which in theory we could take or leave, right? Someone criticizes us, and we not only take in that particular criticism, but we're going to take in the whole critic as if it's inside of us, right? So we take on an inner critic. It started here, but we take it in as if it's us, this inner critic. We mistake something that's outside of us for something inside of us, the opposite of projection. Now, why in the heck would we do this? Because it partially relieves the pain by giving us the illusion of control. If we bring the critic inside, then it's under our management, right? It's a way to try to relieve that criticism, in part by just taking it on. As human beings, we're all prone to do this in our various ways and to various extents. To take what we experienced being done to us, especially early on, and then doing it to ourselves in some way, as a way of trying to claim some measure of control over it, so it won't hurt in the same way. The people in whom fourness is especially strong are the people most likely to embrace their sadness and their grief, right? To take it in. In fact, to see it as part of their identity. Think of the suffering artist as a stereotype that gets you in the ballpark. Enduring suffering with quiet and expressive strength. That's part of who they are, right? That sadness, that melancholy. They, and this part in each of us, often have a keen eye for beauty, intense creativity, a comfort with the darker emotions in oneself and others, an active imagination, powerful compassion with all that feeling, deep and expansive feelings, and a wonderful ability to experience and then to express deep truths about the human condition, because they're not afraid to go there. So let me crowdsource some other thoughts about fourness. Those of you who have been working with the Enneagram or are four or know and love fours, what else would you say about fourness? What's helpful to know? Creative. I'm sorry? They put those that they love on a pedestal. Dramatic, right? It heightened the emotions. Dramatic. Sensitive and caring, right? Really attuned.
Intelligent.
Intelligent. Self-centered, self-focused maybe, right? Or kind of in that internal life, focused on that personal internal life. Fear of missing out, all that good stuff, feeling disconnected, right? And fear of missing out.
Creativity is comforting.
Creativity is comforting.
A good story creator.
A good story creator. Innovator. So where does that come from?
Social anxiety.
Social anxiety, right? So for all these aspects of ourselves, what we would say is nothing in our childhood makes us a certain way, but it does evidence kind of how we're wired in the world. So childhood experiences don't cause our personalities, but they do evidence those tendencies. Fours often felt disconnected and frustrated with all their parent figures or their primary caretakers, often fantasizing that they must have been switched at the hospital with a baby, switched with a baby who went to their real parents. Anybody? As young children, they didn't feel seen, didn't feel connected, did not have themselves mirrored back. And so they came to believe, as children are wont to do, that it must be them, it must be their own fault, and that something must be profoundly wrong with them, which sends people into a lifelong search for their self, right? If it wasn't reflected back, you have to go searching for it. And searching for the perfect partner, the one on the pedestal, for the friends who will see and appreciate them for who they are. As someone put it, on the most profound level, fours are always looking for the mother and father they feel they did not have. Meanwhile, to survive, and so not to feel so much pain, the pain of not getting what we needed, the fourness creates a whole dynamic internal world, right? Where we can be seen by ourselves, if no one else. A world that's typically dismissed by our caregivers as whimsical or unreal or unimportant if it's acknowledged at all. What do you think the country is that's kind of named as stereotypically fourish? Artistic, a little melancholic, thinks of itself as special and wounded? There you go. France, the most obvious one. People say Japan too, in a much more aesthetic way, right? Much more aesthetic way. Animal, what do you think the animal that's described as fourish is? The cat, very much the cat, or the basset hound for the dog lovers. Famous fours, according to some people, Johnny Depp, Billie Eilish, and I just saw an interview recently with Billie Eilish, very, very much fourish. Martha Graham, Prince, Bob Dylan, Amy Winehouse, Miles Davis, Rihanna, Kurt Cobain, Anne Frank, Edgar Allan Poe, Rapunzel, and Luna Lovegood of Harry Potter fame. So what does any of this have to do with transformation or Unitarian Universalism? Here's a reminder that when we're looking at these aspects of personality and giving them numbers and names and referring to people as those things, it's not to put us in a box or limit us, but to help us see the various boxes we're already in and the limits we already place on ourselves, to help us see the patterns, the behaviors, those reactions to which we and others revert most readily, especially when we're worried, stressed, frightened, not at our best. And so in seeing these aspects, to give ourselves a chance to choose differently, not just be driven by what we can't see. Plus, it's a chance to help us gain some understanding and some compassion for those around us who actually operate differently than we do, knowing that we have all these pieces in us, just to different degrees. So the pain of feeling insignificant and not understood, and so not having an identity that's been affirmed, that's too painful to feel for very long. And so the four in us tries to put together an identity that we can affirm ourselves, made out of the rest of our feelings, which means in this case that our feelings then become our identity. Right? If we built our identity out of our feelings, then our feelings are our identity. Thus, the more dramatic and temperamental personalities of fours often. And it becomes especially difficult then to let go of feelings from the past, because who would we be without them? They've been us for so long. But there are problems with believing that we are our feelings. I don't know about you, but my feelings do not hold still. They are like ocean waves, or like the weather in Michigan, or sometimes here. It might be blue sky and sunshine one moment, and dense light-blocking clouds, gale force winds driving stinging sand, and any number of combinations of precipitation 15 minutes later, or vice versa. Feelings are always shifting, but it's hard to create a stable and reliable identity out of something that's always changing. And so in order to have a more stable sense of self, the four in us chooses which feelings to identify with and cultivate, and then rejects the others, the feelings that don't fit that. So that's why fours can become really deeply identified with their sadness and their melancholy, often steeped in it very stably, right? Maintaining it. Although there are certain fours who maintain a sunny upbeatness with an equal amount of tenacity. It's the chosen feelings that become who they believe they are. And so everything that doesn't fit that has to be pushed away or ignored, so it won't interfere. Don Riso and Ross Hudson teach that it's like working with a kaleidoscope. These are actually from this kaleidoscope. Same pieces, same kaleidoscope, very different patterns. And so it's like we take all these patterns, all these possibilities. It's like taking a snapshot of one of them, framing it, putting it on the wall in a prominent location, and believing that that's the kaleidoscope, right? We pick one of the possibilities and say, okay, that's who we are. So the spiritual truth underneath all of this for all of us is that we are inherently, humanly, divinely, amazingly kaleidoscopic, not static. Our true nature, really our constant nature, is always changing. It's always transforming. It's kaleidoscopic. We are a flow of experiences, more rich and more beautiful than we could ever make up or imagine. The personality patterns of all these types we're talking about are describing various ways we are driven to take a snapshot of something, frame it, hang it in a prominent location, and then mistake it for who we are, each in our own way, right? These are the 9 pictures we put on the wall, each in our own way. But like Alice in Beth's Welcome, who when asked, "Who are you?" replied, "I hardly know just at present. At least I knew who I was when I got up this morning, but I think I must have been changed several times since then." I've named before that the lifelong spiritual journey is not about becoming something more or something better or something else. The spiritual journey is a journey of self-acceptance. It's a journey of accepting who we are, but not accepting that singular, static, unchanging picture of ourself. It's accepting the more challenging and radical acceptance, really, of a continually transforming, never final, multifaceted, kaleidoscopic self. The transformation that comes with each move we make toward that kind of self-acceptance, that opens us up to deeper contact with everything, with one another, with all that is, with the divine, some of us would say, and makes our presence transformative in the world just by being who we are, That is a novel thing, right? That moved toward that kind of self-acceptance. Now, both our parent traditions swam against the prevailing currents of their time and tried to parent differently than their parents did. The Universalists rejected the teaching they inherited that we are inherently flawed, inherently deficient, and tried instead to mirror back to people their own beauty, their own goodness. The Unitarians too rejected the teaching that we are inherently flawed, and they also rejected the notion that anything is static and unchanging, even God, let alone human beings, and tried to cultivate among people an openness to that kaleidoscopic kind of truth of existence, always in motion, even with the same pieces. And here we are, stewards of these two merged traditions, swimming still against the currents our ancestors resisted, the currents yet taught and promoted in more narrow versions of Christianity, including among the proponents of Christian nationalism, working hard to make their way the way of the land. And here we are, given our chance to mirror people's goodness back to them, including each other's. Here we are, given our chance to recognize and speak to and live from the ever-changing, ever-transforming nature of everything, including ourselves and each other. And here we are, therefore, given a chance to become ourselves good ancestors in an ever-changing world. So may we be whatever combination of Enneagram numbers we are or aren't. So may we be. We do not need to be already perfect or even halfway to belong in this circle where grace meets us where we are, but does not leave us as it found us, where love resides in each of us, yet is somehow more than all, where life still pulses and rages and heals and transforms, creating us and this day anew once again.